Welcome to Wiseheads, where some of the sharpest minds in business share practical thinking to help you build a better business and make better business decisions. This week, I'm delighted to be joined by Peter Vegas. Peter is one of New Zealand advertising's most awarded creative leaders, having spent decades creating campaigns, building brands, and leading creative teams at some of the country's biggest agencies. Today, we're talking about creativity, advertising, innovation, and what businesses can learn from the way ideas are created, sold, and sustained. Vegas, thanks for joining me.
Nice to be here.
What's changed since those early days of advertising in your view?
When I first got in the early 90s, direct marketing was the big thing coming in, and we were all told that TV advertising was dead because very soon, why would you have to advertise on TV when you can just go direct to people's letterboxes? Then we had the old advent of the internet, and we were told that advertising was dead because why would you need TV advertising and newspaper advertising when a banner ad can reach someone on their screen? The future was banner advertising. And then it evolved into, it's all about content. Mainstream advertising is dead, especially TV, because it's all just going to be about content. And now, of course, AI is the big new one. So all these new things come along, and there's always been a theme to it. Every bit of new technology, this is the biggest, newest game changer ever, and everything is going to change. The reality of life is that things are circular. Yes, new technology comes in. Yes, things change beyond belief, but it evolves over time. As much as everything changes, the core basic principles and laws stay exactly the same, especially what we're seeing with the AI hype at the moment. If you don't understand AI, you might as well just give up now. And I think it's that overhype as we build up to this inevitable AI bubble, then things will settle down and out of the dust will come the real powerful, interesting, game-changing stuff.
To what extent do you think that New Zealand businesses are potentially a little bit more risk averse than they were 20 years ago?
I think there's a lot more pressure in bigger organizations. There's a lot more pressure on marketing departments these days in terms of watching their bottom line and how much money they're spending. I think effectiveness and data has tended to put the spotlight on this idea that, we can see exactly whether that ad campaign was effective or not. I've noticed a change in the vibe of marketing departments over the last 20 years. It's a lot harder internally for them to get traction. They're fighting against cutting budgets and the fact that the organization is kind of judging them. And I think that's created a lot of pressure. And I think within that realm comes nervousness and maybe the idea of we've really got to make sure this works. And that's often language around, therefore, we don't want to take any risks because we've got so many more data and measuring tools around these days. It's taking away people's own instincts and initiative. We've got all this data to show this has got the best chance of working. But in the process of doing that, it's like research, pre-research, post-research, researching the concept before it's been done. The marketing department can go, well, we've tested this and the focus groups really liked it. So that if the campaign doesn't work, they can go, well, that's weird. We researched it. I think research is a really useful tool, but I think when it's used heavily, it can kill ideas and it can kill the creativity and the spontaneity of stuff. And I think we read about these rules. You have to grab someone in the first 2 seconds, otherwise you lose them until you see an idea where that isn't the case. For every rule, there's a complete opposite rule. All these things we can do to reduce the danger and make sure that it's going to be more effective. And along the way, you end up with this blanded out kind of morose of sameness. If I was going to do an analogy, it's like plastic surgery. You know those people that when they've had too much plastic surgery and their faces just look the same? That's what happens to ideas or advertising campaigns where there's been way too much analytical overload and thinking. And that's why you get on TV. 90% of ads are just no one notices them because they all look like every other ad. And that's the exciting thing about great creative marketing, because if you can do something with an idea, a point of view, doesn't have to be big budget. If you can come up with something with a point of view, interestingly executed, you're going to stand out.
When you look at brands doing genuinely interesting work or work that you notice, what is it that you think they're doing that others aren't?
It's always something really, really simple. You take the one campaign that's on at the moment, right? They're a telco that's just like Spark. It's about communication. It's using the network to bring people together. That's a really simple idea, right? That any telco could take. What they've done is hold it in a really, really interesting way that emotionally connects you with that brand. A great strategy and a great point of view for your brand is what will always set you free.
For any smaller business owners watching this today, maybe they don't have a marketing department and they know they need to grow. Is there a competitive advantage in being more creatively courageous than your competitors?
The car dealer who goes, I need to stand out. I'm going to be the guy who wears the big stupid hat. That's creativity, right? That's a guy going, I'm in a market of car dealers all the same. How can I stand out? The Mad Butcher, lovely guy, should be cast in gold, Peter Leach. There was a guy selling meat, just like on every other street corner. He had a personality and instinctively knew, no, I'm going to call myself the Mad Butcher. I'm going to do these ads where I'm quite full on. I'll do radio because it's a more effective way to do it. That came from instinctively a guy with a small business going, how am I going to flog lots of meat? Now, there's heaps of business owners out there that don't necessarily have that instinctiveness, and that's fine. And that's where they can work with a marketing person to go, how can I stand out? That's where the gold is, where you find an angle, just find a why. To me, that's the buzz of bringing creativity to solve problems.
To what extent do you believe that playing it safe has actually become the riskiest strategy in marketing?
I've always thought that. The reason there's so much bad advertising on TV is that a lot of people aren't necessarily trying to make a great ad. I've seen people making a decision based on an ad, thinking about how their boss is going to react to that. There's always still an element of, is this going to work? The decision the person's making in the room about approving an idea is that they're worried their boss isn't going to like it, or they're worried that someone in sales is going to email the boss and go, who approved that ridiculous ad? The best work on TV will come from an organization where internally people feel comfortable and people are prepared to dare say, oh, take risks. The risk that what they would rather do, though, is go, you know what? I love the ideas that you've presented, but we're going to go with option 3, where we just show the product and the smiling lady. And the reason they're doing that, because there'll be the least chance that they'll get a shitty email from their boss or a shitty email from the public. What ads do you remember from last night? None, because no one got into trouble. So when I see great ads, I go, hats off to that organization where the marketing department has a great relationship with their agency. They've got to a place where, yes, this is right for the brand. This is an interesting idea. Normally, in an organization like that, the people above them, the CEOs and those people, they're encouraging good work as well.
There's a theory that much of the media spend has shifted towards digital channels because that is a channel that can be measured. And when we're seeing briefs hit our desks that are quite prescriptive in terms of needing to be a social media output, when marketers can see clicks, conversions, and attribution dashboards in real time, something that they can show in board meetings and justify ROI, the things we talked about, does it become harder to convince them to actually invest in a big idea or brand building?
In a way, absolutely. The great marketers I've worked with, from big companies to small companies, instinctively understand that there's a lovely balance that you find between keeping your brand going and your brand story and doing the day-to-day and the revenue. I mean, if I was going to analogy, it's like, I've got this beautiful fruit tree in the backyard, this grapefruit tree, and I'm getting the grapefruit off. It's great, and giving everyone breakfast. If I keep on pulling all the grapefruit off it and don't look after the tree, then suddenly one day you turn, hey, I'm not getting any grapefruit anymore, because of the way business works these days in the 4 quarters and short-termism, that you go, they're not looking in that long-term brand growth. They're just going, oh my God, last month sales were down. Right, let's do a promotion. And then, oh, look, sales are up. But suddenly you turn around and your brand is, oh no, like people don't think about us anymore. And it's been that balance, the mix of your brand versus your retail, and that there's a real healthy mix. Unfortunately, right, as soon as times get tough and budgets have to be cut, what's the first thing that gets cut? It's the brand or it's advertising in general. I have so much respect for these marketing departments in big and small companies because their job is so much harder now than it used to be. Everyone's held accountable for everything, which makes a good idea even more important. This is what I love about strategy, branding, positioning. In New Zealand, retirement home industry is massive. There's a lot of money. So you've got a lot of brands can afford to advertise so that they all end up in the same channels. And then you immediately start to get this thing where they're all starting to look the same. And then you start to fall into kind of 3 standard strategies. One strategy is, hey, old people aren't all just Dorothy sitting there with a cup of tea. They're zany. And then you've got the other one of, no, we know that it's hard leaving your home, so we're going to go with the emotional heartstring strategy. And then the third one might be, look at it through kids' eyes. And that's where it starts to get interesting. Those car parks are already taken. How do we forge our own voice within that market? That's the essence of branding and advertising, isn't it? How do I stand out in this category? I think there's something really powerful, especially with some of these smaller businesses, where sitting with the business, working with them to work out the essence of their brand and who they are and why, and then everyone understands what they stand for. I'm amazed at sometimes with these big organizations, you'd be sitting there and you go, I bet no one around this table could sum up in one sentence what this brand stands for. I think there's something really powerful about organizations spending more time getting the heart of the brand right and building it out. And then once all that's done, then you can put on the final coat of paint on the house, which is the advertising, rather than just throwing money away on these big external campaigns straight away. Build the brand from the inside out.
Now we're seeing some agencies using AI to generate ideas or even hundreds of initial creative routes, with experienced creatives then curating, refining, and developing the strongest ones. What do you make of that shift?
AI is a really powerful, interesting tool. We are in so much the early days of this. We're all only 18 months in. Anyone that says they have the definitive answer is wrong. And I think we have to look at this as it's exciting. I'm already taking heart from the fact that the other day I made this image on AI and I showed my daughter and she goes, "Oh, Dad, it looks real AI shiny." Like already, after just the last couple of years, there's already a look to AI generated stuff that you can go, "Oh, that's AI generated." And I love that because to me, that reinforces the need for human, authentic, real stuff. I know there's people out there that go, "I'm going to use AI to create my whole advertising campaign. I'm going to save heaps of money." The people that see the shortcuts and things, they're always going to be around, and that's fine. Knock yourself out.
One of the themes that emerged from Cannes this year was that AI appears increasingly capable of generating ideas, much less capable of identifying which of those ideas are genuinely distinctive, memorable, or likely to create commercial impact. In many cases, experienced human judges still significantly outperformed AI when it came to recognizing what good looks like. Does that surprise you at all?
The $1 million skill in our business is recognizing a good idea. If you elevate to be a creative director, you're better at spotting the idea. And often that involves working with teams where you go, they've got an idea, they've got all the shit attached to it. And you go, yeah, forget all, that's the idea. But that's quite hard to do. And I'm not surprised that AI isn't good at that because it's really hard to do. Often as well, the thing with the good idea is the reason it becomes a good idea is it hasn't been done before. Algorithms are great at taking things and comparing things to things and, oh yeah, that's been, iterations of things. That's the essence of creativity, isn't it? Of going, that has not been done before and turning it 180 degrees. Everyone's doing this. Let's do the complete opposite. What is AI not telling me? What hasn't AI said? I'm going to go and do that.
Imagine I'm a business owner operating in a crowded category with competitors who look and sound almost identical to me, and maybe I don't have a marketing department. Where should I begin?
Businesses like that have got access to some really, really good people these days. The answer for the ad agency is, you need to do advertising. You need ads. It's that old thing, that if you've got a hammer, the answer's always a nail. And the reality of the advertising business is agencies are built to make money from doing advertising. And where the tension can come from small and medium businesses is I've only got a limited advertising budget. I don't want to blow it all. I'm not sure where to blow it anyway. But the first step, I think, is understanding its why and identifying, agreeing on that, the essence of its brand, and then internally developing that and buying into that. And after that's done, then working out whether advertising is needed. It's taking time to build from the center out. That's the power, I think.
If there's one thing that every business watching this today should take away from this conversation about creativity, growth, etc., what do you think it should be?
We talked about the idea of whether creativity is risky. I think it's way riskier to do stuff that no one notices or just blends into everyone else. So that seems way riskier and way more of a waste of money. But I think that the key thing comes from thinking about who your organization is, what it stands for, getting that right first, because then any communication that you go out into the world and do is coming from an authentic place that you absolutely believe in. So you're building on something. I think that gives far more value to your organization, no matter how big it is, and to the people that are there. If you can get that core right, then everything you build off on the top of that just has so much more power, and it's not risky because it's absolutely coming from an authentic place and that you're building the business.
I think what comes through really strongly is that creativity isn't simply an advertising industry issue. It's a business issue. Whether we're talking about standing out in a crowded market, building a brand people remember, making smarter marketing investments, or attracting great talent. In a world increasingly shaped by data, technology, and automation, perhaps the ability to produce genuinely original thinking has never been more valuable. Vegas, thanks again for joining me.
My pleasure, mate. I love talking about this stuff.